Okay.
It drove me crazy.
Okay, well, stay with us and don't drive yourself crazy.
Okay.
But Brian Lagerberg is here. He's with DOT, and he would raise his hand back here to add something to the conversation. And, if you would, please.
All right, thank you. So Jill, I have a couple responses for you. The reason WashDOT is interested in transit is because it creates a more complete system, it supports communities, it reduces the total cost of transportation. So in a specific instance, a bus route may not be taking a car off the road. In many, many instances it is, and it's a lower cost solution for us to provide transportation capacity. So there's lots and lots, in fact, the vast majority of the transfer routes in the state are more cost effective than the state investing in roadway capacity, maintenance, and preservation. We struggle to maintain and preserve the highway systems that we have today. And so we're looking for more effective and efficient ways to provide transportation services to support the communities. And that's why this is a local decision though. This is your system, this is the values of your community, this is the specifics of your situation. We look at it at the higher level and we say we want a more complete system because that's more cost effective overall. But it isn't overall in those conversations. It's a specific situation. And so that's why it's your decision, not our decision. Because you're looking at the specifics, I'm looking at the aggregate. And I guess the other thing I'd like to add is I took a lot of economics. I TA'd economics at the University of Washington when I was in school. One of the things that you've skipped over though is when you look at the price point for you to make the profit that you want to make, most businesses fail. Particularly over time, almost all businesses fail over time because they can't continue to get the value or the market that they need to maintain their system. But what you're talking about here is a public good. You're providing values to your community. You're providing access to jobs for people who couldn't otherwise have access to jobs because they couldn't afford their car. And that's part of the importance of this, and the considerations that you need to think about is, what is that value to my community? I don't think you can afford to allow the transit system to fail. Therefore, the equation is slightly different than a strictly economic system. There's other aspects that come into play.
So I'm with you on that, but just on the whole system, I understand that part. It is on the fare collection piece of it. The fact that you could try to collect fares and not set that rate at a high enough level that it would pay for itself, that is confusing to me.
But I guess I'd encourage you to think about what Brad said in Mason Transit. What Brad said was they've identified the commuter routes as an opportunity for them to set the price high enough to recover the costs of the system. They have not been able to do that with their entire system because of the values that Mason Transit has, or Mason County has. They're providing the systems to support those values. They can't set a fare high enough for the local routes to achieve that. Therefore, they focused on those routes where it makes sense.
And Dale made the point too that you are collecting 6%, a positive 6% on top of the cost of setting up the collection system.
Right,
but not 6% on the aggregate of the total system. And Brian, on your comment, and I think we philosophically have this obligation too, to be looking down the road 20 to 40 years down the road. It is fact that we cannot build our way out of this traffic problem situation with the growth that we have in the Northwest, this region, with the load of asphalt. Sorry, Chuck, I know your family sells lots of asphalt. I'm happy for you in that model. But simply there isn't enough space to accommodate the level of service that is required to keep traffic moving when we are a traffic-oriented society, a vehicle-oriented society, and at some point, we have to, at least I believe, we have to transition to where we have fairly strong public transportation systems that are interconnected with all modes of transportation and with other agencies. That is a model that works very effectively throughout Europe. They speak different languages. You can walk in there, pick up a color-coded card, and go wherever you want to, pretty easily. And it seems like we are struggling to reinvent this wheel when it's really not necessary. Our neighbors have already pretty much put the wheels on the wagon. 3 wheels on this cart, we just need to add 1 more wheel.
So, but the difference between Dale's model at 6% and Brad's model is significant. And so why I was focusing on Brad is that his system is rural, it's more like ours. Dale has the benefit of urban areas and a higher density of users per route. And so we're gonna have the same types of ridership model, more like Mason County. And that's why I was trying to really push through and figure out how that system, why you wouldn't just set the price where it's at. And I understand that what it is that if the value is to keep the maximum number of riders on it based on income level, age, access, whatever, that you take what you can take and you don't set the price in order to make the profit. That's what you're saying.
But Ryan also said talked about the pilot project, phasing it, and then we tweak the system as we go.
Right. I understood all of that. I was not understanding any of
Do I
that.
have to give you another glass of wine?
No, I feel like I'm trying to communicate and I'm not very articulate, or that we're not listening. One of the two is true. I'm going to choose to believe I'm not articulate so that I don't offend anybody.
And you're generally a good listener.
I'm a pretty good listener.
Don't be so hard on yourself. But this comes under what, in a free society, we provide for our citizens. And there's a list. I mean, I can't even imagine what, and how do we pay for it? Through our taxes, our income. If you look at a piece of property that you bought 50 years ago, and what it cost, and what it's selling for today, you go, I don't believe it, why? Police, fire, emergency services, it goes on and on and on. And they don't, in most cases, make any profit. But the fact that free societies take care of their citizens, their population. If you look at countries that don't take care of their citizens, you see huge poverty. You see people escaping from those countries for a better life. That's what it comes down to, that it's a loser, and the citizens have to pay for it. Our taxes go up all the time. What we pay on our income goes up, but what we've made goes up. I mean, this area, as well as huge amounts of other areas, are losers. And that's what we pay for. And I don't have any problem under basic economics understanding what this pen cost. If it was designed 50 years ago and hasn't changed, it was probably selling for 7 cents. Today it sells for $5, and somebody goes, why? The cost. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Jim, do you have anything to add before we move on to the next agenda?
Moving back to this idea of a phased approach, one of the advantages of doing this cautiously and with financial data coming back is the need to tap into our population that we serve and begin the process of a dialogue with them about what it takes to expand our services. And that will take some time. It can't happen overnight. And so the whole aspect of working with the public hearings, public discussions, public pamphlets on the buses, discussing, for example, and the other will take time. The other thing I was going to say is that routes that are used for commuting for whatever purpose have maybe a different dynamic than the general public service model, because many of the commuters can pass along the cost or the commuters are already employed and therefore can absorb the cost. So that's why the commuter route can charge a higher price than might be practical on the internal things. So I think one of the things we're testing with the 411 and the 412 is, can the commuting population that uses that, with exceptions maybe for students at half price or something like that, can that give us a 8% return on the cost of doing so? And if it gives us an 80% return, great. You know, then we've found a gold mine. But if it gives us a 10% return, well, it's still 10% on the commuter routes. And then we see whether that's also practical on the non-commuter routes, on the inner city routes. We don't have big cities, but the circulation routes within the island.
Well, one thing I think we should be cautious of as a board is that if our rationalization for charging fares is to expand service, and what we're hearing from rural communities that charge fares is that the system barely pays for itself, that we can't use that or promise that to the community. Because if charging fares is a political thing and not a business thing, and it's not actually generating as much money as we are hoping, we can't use that as a rationalization to say, well, we'll restore Saturday service. Because you can't restore service when you're operating at a loss. And if this system operates at a loss, and we choose to do it for political reasons, then I would caution us at all to say this is how we're going to move forward and start to restore service. Because you can't pay for something with nothing. We have to be careful how we're communicating these things. And we're saying two things at the same time. And that's stressful also.
Okay. I would like to move this meeting. Rick,
Yeah,
have you had your?
Yeah, we're already past.
Well, we don't have a end time advertised here. We have a start time. Mine says we start at 9:30. Where is it advertised that we have ending time? I think that was a conscious decision not to put an ending time. We didn't know that.
We have I anyway have a hard stop time, so we have meetings in town.
Okay, so what is your hard stop time?
My hard stop time is
Noon. Okay, then it's time for us to move on.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Just a procedural thing or process thing. Could I ask that the board suggest to Ryan where the board would like the peer review group maybe to go next with this discussion and the information they've heard? Is there another step to this that the board would like to look at or like to consider?
Would each of you like to comment on that? That's a good question. Where do we go from right now for DOT to assist us with this?
my goal all along has been, how much is it gonna cost us to implement it? How much can we expect on return, no percentage number?
Don't you think that's going to be an internal analysis for us?
That would be fine as well.
Okay. Jill, you have 10 seconds.
I think most of my questions are internal. I want to get a better handle on the cost of running the fare system, all costs associated with that, and then what we will collect anticipated from that system based on the $1, $2 rate model, both system-wide and then just on the connector routes. And then I'd like to explore what's available in terms of contracting. However, I think that's a conversation that we need to also involve Jackie Henderson in, because my suspicion would be that it will take other agencies in order to make that profitable for them, but I am interested in that. I think that fare-free in urban areas, a model to explore whether you can have fare-free just in urban areas is interesting, since they pay the bulk of the tax from there. I'd like to know if you can set different rates in different parts of your county. So, for example, where we know that Whidbey is highly subsidizing the transit system, what would be the possibility of having a higher fare on Camino because they're not prepaying for the system? And And then any recommendations about the outreach as it relates to user groups, how you do that type of public engagement, anything that worked or didn't work in terms of that community outreach piece. And then I just had a general internal question about our insurance rates, that I have some concerns about the bus workers having cash. There's more exchange of money, we take on more liability, so I have a question about insurance rates. Okay, that's it.
Now, do any of your paratransit systems charge paratransits? I thought I heard somebody say they charge $1 or something like that.
Yeah, we do as well.
Do you all, Steve, that's another item that we want to.
We
now-
do not. Our board has decided that we have a sheltered work space in Scranton County, and the board has decided that we do take donations. We have a fare box on the paratransit, but it's donations.
Okay.
About $800 a year.
And just as a reference, under the law, you can go twice for paratransit what the fixed route fare is. So
Okay.
once you determine a fixed route fare, if you determine a fixed route fare, you can charge up to twice the paratransit.
So if we have it's an example, a suggestion. Say we have intercity, and we're gonna charge $1 intercity. Then intercity paratransit, we can charge $2. And for me, one of the reasons for charging such a nominal amount is because the program is already subsidized. And $2, $1, most people can afford that. Maybe there are some people who just simply can't.
Yeah,
But-
and it differs throughout,
Yeah.
again, it differs throughout the state in terms of how much is charged for paratransit.
Yeah.
Also, on routes that are considered commuter routes, ADA service is not actually required, so.
Okay, and then as I have traveled, let's say, like the system in Wenatchee, their fares are $250 for their long routes,
Yeah.
at least the ones that I've been. And is that consistent with some of the other transit?
I can provide you with a fare analysis.
You know, that.
Based on, throughout the state, looking
Okay.
at.
We would like to
everywhere
see
from-
that. I would like to see that.
Yeah, I can provide you with
Okay,
that
thank you.
information.
Yes, one of the things you mentioned is that along with fares, there need to be procedures spelled out for how to deal with problem situations.
Correct.
And either people not wanting to pay the fare, people not able to pay the fare. And I would include in that how to deal with populations that have a different need. For example, students or public school students who use the bus to get home from soccer practice and sports. In other words, a policy manual or example of policies that should go along with fare collection. And I would underscore the need for some advice on how to do public outreach and discussion.
And I think we already have a copy of Skagits and Watkins fare policy. Is that correct?
And I put together a
Yeah.
sample that I have already. that I
So
can
that's
distribute.
gonna get.
Well, that's
That's
great.
gonna-
That answers at least
Yeah,
half or
some of
more
that, yeah.
of my question.
Dale?
I could answer the question on the insurance. We're all members of the Washington State Transit Insurance Pool. We pay by the mile. That's how our premium is. The fare boxes have no factor whatsoever.
I mean, we're paying more insurance because we drive from Oak Harbor to March's Point and Cordes to subsidize. I really appreciate you guys doing this. That's your in-kind.
Good thought, yeah.
Lance, do you have a comment before we
No,
move
I'm
on?
just anxious for us to move along.
We have, in the sake of time, we have to move on. Thank you very, very much for sharing your experiences and helping us with this. And I wished I could have been at the previous meetings. The notice that, I got was kind of, this is when it's gonna happen, and it was late, and I was already committed. We've got some major things happening in the city of Oak Harbor with the wastewater treatment plant, and it does affect my schedule quite a bit right now. Thank you very, very much. And Brian, thank you for coming too. I understand you're gonna continue to show up for a while, is that correct?
If you need me.
Apparently I did.
Yeah. Thanks a lot. Okay, special meeting workshop item number 2, and I know you probably all want to move on with your life here, is resolution 9-15 of the Island Transit Board of Directors adopting the Island Transportation Planning Organization, also known as the IT30, Articles of Association and Bylaws, and superseding resolution 11-99. And Ken, you're going to walk us through that, and this is an action item.
Yes, this is resolution, basically adopting and agreeing to the Articles of Association for the new Island Transportation Planning Organization, which is basically the replacement organization to continue the overall planning activities that were included with the former Skagit Island Transportation Planning Organization, which, since as everyone knows, broken up. So this is the Island Transit or Island Transportation version of the larger regional version. Takes the place of the larger group at the local county level. And the articles include the signatures for all the members of the organization, which is on the last page of the attachment, the exhibit, and then the place for the authorized signature of the chair to acknowledge a new agreement.
And it's been reviewed, you looked at it. I would move approval of resolution number 11-99.
A second.
Well, we have a motion to approve resolution -915.
Oh, I'm
9-15.
sorry, resolution number 9-15. Rick, you are right. You are right, Rick.
Not all the time, but part of the
I-
time. Do I have a second?
I did.
Okay, thank you, Rick. We have a motion to adopt the resolution 9-15 by Ms. Johnson and a second by Mr. Hanold. Now, is there any discussion regarding this? We have the full packet in here. Anybody have anything to add to this?
We talked about it at our last work session.
Right.
This is just, we had a
This is
regional
a formality.
transportation model. We need to switch it to an island county transportation model.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? All right, we have a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, it carries unanimously. And I want to just make a comment, although we did step off of our workshop item number 1, it says discussion, possible action. We took no action, but I want to make sure that staff understands that there are some things that we want you to do. And I don't know if we articulated those thoughts, but I think it comes down to we want to have I would like to have a proposal for our long routes, what it costs to operate those routes based on the known ridership, and what our fare system would look like if we adopted the fare system that Watkins and Skagit have, if we're thinking about connecting with them. Does that make sense to you guys?
The long routes and the connector routes.
Yes, and also
Yeah.
connector routes.
The connector routes,
for
yeah.
Projected or possible revenue and projected operating costs.
And also, there's another point to that too. The continued analysis, underscore analysis and discussion with Skagit and possibly, for the RFP to contract out the Stanwood, Skagit Station and Everett, that kind of thing. We may have a little nugget in there that works in our favor. We went through that little discussion analysis with you, Paul. But there still may be some life in still keeping, and I did share this with Paul, there may be some benefit for us and still be able to have Skagit or community take care of those long routes in their area and have some of those funds come out of the 412 think that Kim will brief you on our discussion.
That applies to 412.
The 412, yeah. Okay, so now we have on our agenda an executive session. We need to go into this executive session.
There's a question here to my left, excuse me, sorry.
Mr. Chair, before you go into executive session, and once again, I know, as much as you really in your heart want me, I'm not going to be invited. So, I have a few questions.
I don't have it in my heart.
No, anybody else? I had some questions regarding the RFP 03-15, and that's the request for proposal on the collective bargaining services. I promise I won't take any more than 5 minutes, but perhaps you could answer a few questions I have?
Sure.
Okay. The first one is there a budget for the cost of this labor consultant? Is there a budget, or is it open-ended as far as the money's that?
What I understand about this, we don't know. Excuse me. Okay. Out of courtesy, I'm going to just briefly touch on some of these things, but I can't step into things that are in our executive session. Whatever is in the budget is available through public disclosure, and I have to ask you to go to Paul or go through that route. I'm not going to comment on that.
Okay.
Fair enough?
I can't argue against you. I mean, it wouldn't do me any good, and I don't want to prolong it. Can I move on then?
Well, you're starting to work your way into my heart, man.
Ultimately, that's my goal. I wonder why at this point there's a need, and I said this before, to contract for a labor consultant when the negotiations have been productive up to this point, and there's been numerous sessions of negotiations. They've been productive, non-contentious, and quite collaborative. And I think the CEO and then any others that have been in there would not disagree to that. If it was the opposite, negotiations were stalled, there's no progress being made, issues were at an impasse, I could understand that. But to employ a consultant at the stage where there isn't a legitimate reason to say we can't go any further. And I think what's going to happen is this board will agree to hire the largest law firm in our state, based in Seattle, that represents most medium to small-sized public transit agencies statewide. And Island Transit is going to spend a ton of money before this is over. Even if you think you'll have it under control, hopefully somewhere down the road you won't be saying, oh my God. I know this firm, and I believe they're good in what they do. With that said, they're also very expensive. To hire them at this stage, I really think is irresponsible to, as one board member said, the citizens of Island County and the taxes they pay.
Okay, there's a lot of comments and questions to that topic.
There's no decision made, yes.
There's no decision made.
No, but it will be tomorrow.
Well, I can't read anybody's mind, but.
If not tomorrow, sometime next week, because it was extended, the deadline, by 10 days.
Any action would have to be done in an open meeting.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, I'm just saying, I mean, if I was in Vegas and there was a betting line on this, I know who I'd be betting
Okay,
on.
put your money on that, go to your next
On that
question,
firm
because
in
I gotta
Seattle.
move on to this executive
All right,
session.
last thing, Island Transit has a CEO who has a staff. That's what the staff gets paid to do. Let them do their job until the 5 board members with all your experience in labor contract negotiations determine their staff here is no longer capable of getting a decent contract for Island Transit. That's all I'm asking.
Okay. I'm on record with the staff of having a resolution that is fair to the employees, the members of the union, and to the administration and the survival of the system.
Good.
That's a public record.
Good.
And with that, I appreciate your comments, and you've always been in my heart. We get along fine, okay?
Mr. Chair,
Honestly, I'm a little bit uncomfortable with this line of questioning at the table. This is involving union, labor organization negotiations and management negotiations.
And we're
I don't
moving
think we
into
should
our
be doing that in a
executive
public forum.
And quite
I'm very uncomfortable with
respectfully,
this.
you know better, sir.
Okay,
You know,
time
well,
out,
I just,
time out.
not time out, you know better. These are union negotiation issues. Our union strategy and negotiation strategy belongs to the board, and you know better. So
And management rights belong to the board.
You know, here we go with the comments, I know better. I've asked questions about,
I move to
this
go into
agency
executive
doesn't
session.
have money.
I second.
Okay.
We have a motion and
We
a
have a
second.
motion for,
Here you
we
go.
are going into executive
Cut
session.
the
Thank
people
you,
off and you
Joe.
don't like what they're
Rick,
saying.
Jim, Lance,
Man,
I'm done.
okay. Ryan, thanks a lot.
Ryan, appreciate all your hard work. Thank you. It was good. Hope we didn't beat you up too bad.
We're gonna be in executive session
No,
for
I'm
no
here
longer
all
than
day.
10 minutes.
We're gonna put you in there.
Okay, good. Yeah, going back. I think Peggy said we're going back.
Yeah.